Hi, this is Tessa Keogh, and it's April 1st, but there is going to be no April Fools here. Instead, I thought what we could do is have Legacy Show and Tell. Now, this is my sample 3-generation family file in version 7.5. And as you can see, it was not real colorful. I'm not one of those people who has my system set up so that it's really bright but I will say that I have always liked the layout of this and using the kind of royal blue and plum color for the male and females and using this kind of periwinkle in the background for my database in Legacy. And I made up a sample 3-generation family file. I've mentioned this before with 3 generations that I know none of these people are alive, and also I know a little something about these people. So I am very comfortable working with dates and places and spellings of names and sources and the documents that I use. So this makes it much more useful for me to play around or to show things to you in Legacy because I'm very comfortable that I'm not working with my own personal family file and that I know the information that's out there. So as I said, this is the 3-generation family file in version 7.5, and ta-da! This is my sample 3-generation family file in version 8.0. And what you'll notice right away, I think, is that the colors are pretty close as far as the, fonts. But what you'll notice is that there's a lot more white space, and that's because they're using white. And so I think that makes a huge difference. And although I know some people have changed their theme or their colors to be much more colorful, I do like this very clear and clean layout on my family file. And I've even made the background a little bit more subdued than that periwinkle color. Now, one thing I will say is I'm sure that I'll get tired of those potential problem exclamation points soon and turn those off because we have a lot of those issues in our family that other people must think are problems. I do like having the 9 tags always available. You can see that I work with my record identification numbers, and so those are always on in my family file and pedigree file as well as in the indexes. That's how I file documents, and so I want to be able to see them. I would say that when you take a quick look at this, it just looks a lot cleaner to me. I like the fact that the toolbar can be compressed so that you just have those drop down menus that then open up each of those sections. And I just think that they did a good job with the change of the layout. Now, I will say it took me a long time to work through the customization here because personally, I did not find it as quick and easy and intuitive as the layout for customization was in 7.5. Once you work through and know where to find the areas that you want to change in customization, it gets a little bit easier, but I will say it definitely took me longer to get what I wanted to get in Legacy 8.0. I will also say I had a lot more choices, and certainly you have choices now that are global and choices that are in the family files. And so I think that's a nice thing too, because if I'm working on a family file for someone else, perhaps what I call the unrelated Keoghs, so people who've married in and I'm working on their family file for them, or I'm doing a project for someone, I can put together the colors that they want to use or just they might have different types of defaults. Maybe they do use the term christening. Maybe they do want double dating. Those types of things. Maybe you're working with a Swedish file, so you were not going to set a default on the surnames. So there's a lot more opportunity to really drill down into the options that you want in Legacy. I will say give yourself enough time to play with it if you're one of those people who likes to customize and make it your own. Otherwise, go with a theme that's set up by Legacy. So with that said, I thought we'd go live and look at a few of the differences. Okay, so basically now you're seeing Legacy 7.5 up in the upper left-hand column, and you're seeing Legacy 8.0 in the lower right-hand column. And the first thing that you'll notice is that your title section tells you that Legacy is now maintaining your family files in a different place than they were before. And I know this was an issue that some people had just because they didn't understand it, but I'll say it was a pretty easy switchover. And it was also very easy for me to see where the files are maintained both in 7.5 and 8.0, which I like because until I'm really comfortable with 8.0, I am not doing my family research, my new research in 8.0. That's probably going to come in another week or two because I think it's pretty stable now, and because some of the glitches that I was concerned about at the beginning have been worked out. In any event, I think that's something that everybody needs to be sure of for themselves. You might want to download the free version and continue to play with that free version of 8.0. You might have both versions that you've paid for and you're going to continue to play, or perhaps you're going to just archive your version 7.5 now and just look forward and only work in 8.0. I did want to point out a couple of things that I think make a big difference and just show you how I've set mine up, and then hopefully you're going to show me yours. So I would say one of the major differences right at the outset is not having so much space taken up by this toolbar. And in fact, you can go to my toolbar and open it, and it can be any of the things that you had on your toolbar. You can easily go to any of those toolbars that you had. And I definitely like that idea because I think it makes it much cleaner and it gives you a lot more room for your data entry or for your review of things, which I think is great. I'm also liking the flat view, although I'm kind of surprised. I thought I'd want it to be 2D, and in fact I used 2D in 7.5, but I think with the layout of the white, it doesn't play as well in a 2D. I also was concerned about lines, just because I like them and I grew up with having lines in school to write on. But this layout is very clean and I think looks really good. So I would say, kudos all around on the look of this, especially if you play with it and play with your fonts and have a sense of what you like. It's a small thing, but in this instance, the way that it was set up was it listed up to 5 children in each of these lines and then moved on. And this one with a best fit, moves it so if there's a total of 8 children, they're equally spaced out. I like that as well. I said before that I love the fact that there are all of the tags on here because I do use tagging, and I think that that's going to be an important function to really understand tagging. And there's a number of our Legacy Virtual User Group Hangouts that have talked about tagging, and Linda McCauley does an excellent job of explaining how she uses tagging. But I definitely think that that's something you want to spend a little bit more time with now that they're so easy to find and use in Legacy 8.0. This is what my home screen looks like for the family. I will also say that I've used this plum color, which I like, if I want to rotate. And you'll notice that this, whenever you go into these sections, you can bring up information and there'll be a little tag that comes up, and this is probably because of just where I've placed it on the screen for us to look at, but it will tell you what it is that you'll be clicking on. And for instance, you could click on this one right down here for more information, and it will bring up when I last modified information, when I added it, when it was incorporated. So that was there before, but it's just a nice thing to be able to see here. I'm going to go ahead and show you pedigree in 7.5 and pedigree in 8.0. I think this is a much cleaner look as well. I like it. I like the fact that we can go between 4. Now I'm not going to have this instance here, but you could also have 5, and I think it's a much cleaner look for the layout of this as well. I didn't really think this information was all that necessary because you can easily get to it. I don't know how other people feel about that, but like I said, if I'm looking at a pedigree, this is the type of thing that I want to be looking at. And let's see if we could go down here. I think it just shows up well. Now if we go to the descendant section here, I need to go back to Pierce Murphy so that we're dealing with the same group. But you can easily see your information. And the thing that I would point out here is this is also much cleaner. You're getting all of the information, and in this instance you would have had to scroll down just because of the spacing of everything to see your information. To get this information and to play with it, I think it's much cleaner here. The chronology report in both of them. This gives you a sense of what it looks like. You can play with all of the colors that you want, but I think this is another one where the layout seems just a lot cleaner to me, and you're getting a lot more information here when you look through this. Now, one thing I will point out, and I'm going to move this just for a second. Someone mentioned that they had been working on their chronology report. And it's interesting here because now you have some choices, and what they've done with the choices is put them down in this corner. And so you have report style and you have list style, and so it provides any of that information in a list format that you can play with. The other thing is in your report, if you were working with it before, you would go into print and then look at preview if you wanted to look at what your report looked like. Here you go to options and you can print, you can display various options, or here you'd click on report. And this is where your preview is going to show up. A lot of people kind of got lost by that, and I will agree with you. It was not intuitive to find. I wouldn't have thought report would bring up the preview. Sometimes we have to think outside of the terms we would use, or take a look at the help file to see maybe what Legacy wants to call it. But here again, you can do anything that you did before with coming up with your report and taking a look and seeing what the margins were, what the format is you want to use, any of that. And this is always something I do because I like to see what the report's going to look like before I print it out. So that's right here in options. The next item is index, and we're at our bottom of our list right now, but if we were putting this in that type of order, let's take a look at our index the same way. Again, I really like the look of this. I think it is so much cleaner, and I think it's a small thing, but instead of a really strong black line, it's kind of that gray line that they're using in Google and Ancestry and Find My Past and Family Search and all the rest of them. And it's a little bit easier on the eyes actually. And so I think that's a good look. You can choose this color, whereas before you couldn't. I would prefer not to have glaring blue, but some people like that. And so I'm using a brown that kind of goes with the taupe, but you could use anything you want. And as you see when you come down here, that line just follows through. I like the layout of this. I like the layout at the bottom, although I notice that sometimes you don't get the full name, and I always used to be able to get the full name here, but that's just a small little almost nothing item. So the layout is the same, and my guess is there was a lot of work that was done in the background to make any of these changes to options work for us, and that probably took a lot of time because you're really going to be able to play around with a lot of options. And in fact, if we were to go to options and go to customize, you see that all of these options now to customize things are done, and I'll just show you here in general settings. And I don't know why it does that. It kind of closes out and comes back, you know, like saves and opens up again, which is a little odd. My customization tab always stayed open in Legacy 7.5. I don't know if it's me or if it's Legacy, but in any event, all of these items are numbered, and then you just scroll through and determine what it is you want to do. Now you have to think like Legacy. A number of them are similar, but they're not quite the same. But one thing I'll point out is GBL is a global change. So when you say what you want it to do here, that's going to happen globally in your legacy program, no matter what family file you're in. And these might all be global right here. If you wanted to integrate with Family Search, that's for a family file. And so, for instance, I might want to integrate with Family Search in my own personal family file, and I might not want to do that if I'm working on something for a client or for a project that I'm doing. So those types of things are what you're going to want to take a look at. The other thing you're going to want to do is always remember the help file. If you need help, that's where you click on it. And certainly if you're on this page, which is General Settings, and clicked Help, it would tell you about the Help section for General Settings, or at least it should. Keep in mind that you have this Options index here, and this lists all of the options and tells you where they're found. Now this is in the Help system. It's interesting because I find that sometimes these would not be the terminology that I would necessarily use. And I found it, for the most part, in discussing colors. It wasn't as intuitive to me as it was to some other people. But the good news is, if you ask the question in the Legacy Virtual Users group, someone here will not only give you the answer, but they'll usually do a screenshot and show you where you need to go or how it should look or what theirs looks like. And I think that is a real boon to having a community on Google+, is we can all grab a screenshot and share it with each other or make a video. That's your options index, and I would say that's the first place to go look if you're trying to find out where you would go to look up something. So if it were adding new spouses, children, and events, that's option 2.2, and it's in data entry. So we would go to data entry, and it's at 2.2, and then you literally go through and click or unclick anything you want, and then at the point where you're finished, you can save it. Now, the interesting thing is that the research guidance has moved in Legacy 8.0, so it's no longer the 7th tab along that top bar that you work with. And in fact, I would say that if you want to have it on your toolbar, you have a couple choices. The first is to go to My Toolbar and then to make some changes, and you could go here and customize your toolbar. And you click on it, and then there's a list of toolbar buttons to put on. So you would make a choice here. And the interesting thing to me is that when you take a look at all of these, they're not done in alphabetical order, which I guess the geek in me would put them all in alphabetical order. But the research guidance is here. So all you'd need to do is add it by dragging and dropping it to the desired position. So for instance, if you wanted to add it right there, you could do that, and then research is right in there. Close it out, and the next time you go to My Toolbar, research guidance is right here. And it would be research guidance for the person who is highlighted right here. Now the other thing you can do, and I got to tell you, I was kind of surprised, I guess I'd say, because you need to come to Design, and you have Design for Styles, and those are for these bars up here, for your font to read it, and for toolbars. And so you have a quick access toolbar, which is this area right in here. You have My Toolbar, which is the toolbar we were just at, and this is where you'd need to come if you wanted to update this toolbar or make any changes. Because the other thing you can do is click on this, and it opens up and tells you what's available. So if you wanted to, you could say that you wanted to put research. Well, I didn't get quite where I wanted it. So I could put research guidance right in here. So you're going to see, and maybe we'll need to make this a little larger, you're going to see now that you have research guidance there. Now, personally, I think I've mentioned this before, I don't use research guidance in Legacy because I use GenSmarts. but that's just a personal preference. It's something that I used at the outset. It was something that was there before Legacy introduced research guidance. It's something that I can make great notes in and work with very easily. But you should go ahead and do whatever system works the best for you. The last thing I'll show you, I guess, is the Legacy home screen, because this is another one. I was able to change the colors that I wanted for links, and that's something that appeals to me as well. Your to-do items are very clear in here, as well as all of your support items. Everything showed up the same, and what I've been trying to show you is I was trying to make these windows the same so that we could compare them. I think the font is much easier to read here. There's a lot more space. It's a little bit bigger just because of how much space is not taken up with this toolbar or by having really large tabs here. That's a little bit of the look of my file. We'll go back and end on the family file so you can see. I think it's a real improvement from the looks. I will say I have not played around a lot with the new reports and some of the statistics that are there, but I thought that was something we could do in a future Tuesday's tip. Today I just wanted to kind of explain how I've played with mine and how I get it to look. And our next Tuesday's tip, I thought we could take a look maybe at events and facts and how an individual as opposed to a family view looks and go from there. Like I said, I showed you mine. I'd love to see what you've done. I have already seen a little bit that some people definitely like green and other people definitely like lavender. So what other colors and themes do we have out there? I'm looking forward to seeing them. We'll see you next Tuesday for another Tuesday's tip.